and 61 pence sterling.
For more on finance, we're joined by Rod North, Executive Director at Bourse Communications. Rod, good morning.
Good morning.
So do you imagine that market's got a bit of catching up to do?
Yeah, a bit of catching up to do today, but I don't think it's going to be too exciting. I mean, even though we had a big rise on Wall Street on Friday and we had some good jobs numbers out, it sort of doesn't help having, China sort of pulling back a bit there with their import figures, although you've still got to take full account of the fact that China is still growing, at 7%, so the growth rate there is still pretty significant. So I think with China, you're going to get good and bad figures, coming out over the next 12 months or so. But China has that ability to turn things around quite quickly, and particularly on the import side.
Yep.
They can change that situation very quickly just with their own sort of central government there.
Let's look at one of the key indicators for our economy. That's retail spending. It's been rising, but it's still relatively subdued. But, Rod, that hasn't stopped a number of big overseas retailers from eyeing off our market.
No, it's been really quite fascinating, and I think a lot of that has had to do with the fact that we've had a high dollar and people have been able to buy on the internet. So what that has done is it's meant that people have been able to expose themselves to sort of major groups all around the world from a retail point of view. And what we've seen is groups like Under Armour, for example, which is a US apparel group that wants to grow its business to about $4 billion, and it's targeted Australia as being a place to do that. So it's actually going to be setting up a retail store here next year, and is currently in negotiations with Rebel Sports, and it will then look to perhaps get its brand through those stores. So I think we could be looking to companies overseas to sort of help build the retail stocks here, and particularly a lot of the major companies, if they support some of these overseas brands, perhaps by co-partnering them. And you look at ASOS, for example. A lot of people have used ASOS online for goods, and we've got H&M and Zara, for example. So these are brands. So really, in some ways, what we're seeing is an internationalisation of Australia from a retail point of view.
Or running up the white flag.
Or running up a white flag, but also our local brands, co-partnering, I think, and that's going to help build sales quite significantly, because Under Armour, we're talking about a business that's going to be turning over $4 billion.
Now, we've got some housing finance figures coming out today, is that right?
Yes, that's right. That'll be the data for April, and also business confidence. So I think housing finance data for April is expected to drop about 1%. And then the key one will be, obviously business confidence, just to see how that is. And of course, we'll be waiting with bated breath for the unemployment figures sort of out later in the week on Thursday.
Well,
so
good to see you,
lot to look at this week.
Yes, a lot to look forward to. Thank you.
Thanks.
Now, coming up on ABC News Breakfast, Julia Gillard is visiting a school in Brisbane this morning, doing her best to ignore the growing leadership chatter around her. She will be talking to the media shortly.